Today is the day we draw our line in the sand and we make a choice. Because I'm telling you right now, there is no more middle ground. As well, you're either going to love me for what I'm about to say, or you're going to hate me. Because today, I will be no respecter of people. The gloves are coming off. So the big news this week is the obvious, Israel. And I cannot begin to tell you the amount of emails I have received asking for my thoughts on this current crisis. Now, understand, I have purposely not said anything the last several days about this, as I just wanted the dust to settle. It's so common that people feel this knee-jerk reaction to be the first on the scene, to report on things. Look, I don't do that. While I can be more emotional and emotive than most, I also typically take a very logical approach to crisis events because emotions cloud sound judgment. And what can cause emotional triggers in people? Stories of blatant injustice and wrongful killing. And as a result, people are more susceptible to false narratives and propaganda. This Israeli situation is no different. And so just to recap what we're being told is Israel was caught in a surprise attack this past Saturday. Hundreds of Israelis were shot and killed or taken hostage by Palestinians. While Israel and Palestine had many skirmishes over the decades, there are two things that need to be highlighted here. The first being Israel's guard was down. There were current negotiations for peace in the region. And the second is the degree of brutality and disregard for human life. That's what we're being told. Is this the truth? Well, after talking with several people about this situation, let me just share a bit of those discussions that they really need highlighting. The first being that this was a surprise attack. That's what we're being told. Now, while I have never been to Israel, I have been assured by several people that there is no way this could have been a surprise attack. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But the second thing to note is, have you seen so many WEF stooge world leaders now condemn Hamas? And in the meantime, Russia is supporting Iran, which in turn supports Palestine. But here it is. Even in Australia, just a while ago, our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was supporting Palestinians in Australia. And then shortly after, he's seen with a yarmulke supporting Israel. And the last thing I'll point out is the rampant video propaganda. Look, it's possible that only 20% of the footage that we're being shown is actual footage. For example, there's footage of phosphorus being dropped on by Israel on Gaza. But some of this footage is actually Russian footage from a few years ago. And get a load of this one. Footage of a helicopter being taken down by Hamas is actually a video game. Now, granted, if you watch carefully, it's not hard to figure it out. But how many people just see the headline and they bought it? And to me, this all has the earmarkings of Jesus in Matthew 24, talking about deception in the final days. I'm constantly talking about this. Now, what is not a deception or a lie is the hatred the Palestinians have towards Israel. In fact, this can be seen by the celebrations globally as Muslims have taken to the streets in show of support. Now, what comes to mind is 1 Thessalonians 5:3 that says, "For when they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape." So is this that event? To be honest, I'm not sure. This is to be seen as things unfold, and we all need to be very careful that we are not just applying the Bible to current events aimlessly. But what we now need to be watching is Iran, Russia, and Turkey. There are two major prophecies that have yet to be filled. The first is Isaiah 17 and the destruction of Damascus in one night. And the second is Ezekiel 38 and the war with Gog and Magog against Israel. Now, I don't have the time here to give you a biblical breakdown of the details, but I believe it is Israel that obliterates Damascus. And most likely, this will be nuclear. This is also what possibly brings peace to the region. And I say this as Ezekiel 38 speaks of a time when Israel's guard is down and doesn't see the attack coming from Gog. Now, personally, I don't see the events directly tied, but I also believe anything nuclear from Israel would certainly turn the entire world against them. This is all heavy speculation, however. But what we do know is Iran hates Israel, and so do the Palestinians. Now, look, most Westerners are not going to comprehend this degree of hatred. But understand the Bible is very clear in many verses just how evil people are. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick." In Genesis 8:21, God says, "The intent of man's heart is evil from youth." Jesus said in Matthew 15, "For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murderers, adulteries, fornications, etc." Look, do not be fooled into thinking, look, I just want to think everyone has goodness in their heart. Folks, that is a lie. Yes, we can all be good, mostly, but we all have our moments. But consider hatred so evil and so vile that someone would slit your throat and broadcast your dying on the floor over social media. And look, I say this because it happened during this incursion. Now consider the verse about Satan in 1 Peter 5:8. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. John 10:10 says, Jesus said, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy." Look, these are not cute little platitudes. We are in a spiritual war since birth with a real enemy that is dead set on one thing, taking you to hell with him. But it seems to be such commonplace now amongst the Christian community to take on board this placid persona of, it's all under grace, and now we're a Christian, we can't be angry. Wrong. I am here to tell you folks, righteous anger is biblical, and righteous anger motivates. And today is the day I am calling everyone to action. Now, I want to show you a video here that I doubt any of you caught, even with it being from the NBC News. But I'm going to use this to demonstrate what real leadership and real courage looks like. Have a watch.
You were a grandfather on a mission.
Exactly.
Today, I met retired Israeli Major General Noam T-Bone. He got a text Saturday from his son Amir, who was staying with his family on a kibbutz near the Gaza border when Hamas arrived.
He told me, Dad, there are terrorists all around. They are shooting on the house. And I said only one thing, be quiet, I'm on my way.
Armed with only his pistol, Noam and his wife, who's also a retired military officer, drove to the kibbutz, joining Israeli soldiers in a gun battle with Hamas. You killed some of the terrorists.
I killed at least one, yeah.
You are a trained soldier, but still, you're protecting your family at that moment.
I was in many battles. This is by far the most important thing that I did in my life. I was protecting my family.
So what do you think? Was this man in the right? Was it okay for him and his wife to shoot back, thus killing at least one person? Look, if you have any doubt, if you think this man should have maybe taken a different tact, do me a favor, click off this video now. Unsubscribe from this channel because what I'm about to say will be like nails on a chalkboard for you. I am sick and tired of seeing so many Christians take a passive approach to conflict and resolution. In fact, it's not even conflict resolution, it's actually conflict avoidance. Now, I do believe the saying, pick your battles, are indeed wise words. However, you cannot stand by idly with your head buried in the sand and make any of this go away. Yes, taking a stand sometimes comes with a cost, but standing for what is right and just is how I personally hold my head high. For example, when COVID put Melbourne into lockdown, I was the one raising my hand telling the church, I will produce your video content. And so I did this for 6 months, but I also disagreed with the lockdowns, and I was extremely vocal about it. I was the thorn in their side, really, constantly citing Hebrews 10 about how we should come together in person as the end draws near. But I constantly had to hear Romans 13 about obeying your leaders. Now look, does this mean we should follow our leaders blindly? Well, of course not. But they could not see beyond their own ignorance and misunderstanding of biblical context. And they put man above God. And so when the masks got mandated, I made it very clear that that was my line in the sand. Wasn't going to happen. Instead of having a civil chat with me, look, they must have drawn straws because I got a call from one of the lower pastors to tell me that my services were no longer needed. And that was that. Haven't spoken to any of the staff since. Now, look, I'm actually not bitter at all with how it went down, but it's more the fact that we are called to stand for righteousness. And yet the church I went to for years couldn't put their own words into action. Because you know what? They don't believe it. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. It's your heart that determines your actions. And yes, some things can be scary and uncertain, but if you walk with conviction, fear can be overcome. When I was very young, my mother and I lived with my grandparents until I was 6. And as a result, I was always extremely close to them. Both came from the Depression era. My grandfather was a World War II veteran in the Navy. And when he came home from the war, he started a family with my grandmother and worked hard creating a successful business until his retirement in the 1990s. And over the years, not only did they tell me stories about American history, they spoke from a platform where they understood the cost of freedom and embraced the United States. And so when you hear that phrase, America is the greatest country, it's because of them. They were the ones that were innovative and set the foundation for the American way of life as we know it. So when I see articles and images of these clowns, where they feel so entitled as they cry for the completely made-up phrase of social justice, I honestly just want to sit them down and slap them. Because here's the reality of the situation. If you put this guy against this guy, who do you think is going to win? What about these two? And how about these two? And then you got this knucklehead as the president. How do you think the rest of the world sees America with this guy in office? Now, look, I'm not asking you to like Trump, but from 2016 to 2020, were there wars? Did you have a job? What was the price of gas? Were you generally happy? Look, if my grandparents saw what was going on in the world today, despite their age, I guarantee you they would not put up with this. So let me point out what people are putting up with and doing nothing about. Globally, Islamic extremists have taken to the streets in major cities, rallying a cry of support for the actions of Hamas. And authorities are not doing anything about it. Let me say this another way. A whole bunch of terrorists are gathering in public streets all around the globe supporting hatred strong enough to justify the killing of women, children, and grandmothers. And police are so cowardly that they are just letting it happen. In fact, in Sydney, as flares were being thrown at the Sydney Opera House, the police were going around telling everyone Jewish to stay in their homes. What should have been done is all these people in attendance arrested and then put on a short wait list to get deported. In fact, if they want to support Palestine so badly, look, send them straight to Gaza and see how they fare. After all, Jews from around the globe are packing into planes like sardines right now and going to Israel right now to defend the country. I don't see these protesters doing it. Instead, they talk of hate, never acknowledging the true freedom they have to even protest to begin with. But I want to stay here in this moment and point out something that should absolutely get your blood boiling. You are probably paying for this. Just last month, the Biden administration gave billions of taxpayer dollars to Iran, a country that is currently applauding Palestinian efforts and also screams death to America in the streets. What's more, Newsmax is now reporting Biden sent $730 million taxpayer dollars to an anti-Israeli United Nations group. And this has nothing to do with the billions of taxpayer dollars already sent to Ukraine, with even more on the way. And if you think that's something, let me share with you an email I just got last month from one of the viewers. Now, I have to admit, I was going to let this one die and not bring it up. And look, I will protect their identity, but I'm telling you, this has to get exposed. The email read, "Sir, I just watched your video called 'This is Treason.' I want to let you know that my son is a Florida highway patrolman who was deployed to Texas for 2 weeks and did a midnight shift. They processed just in their area at midnight over 6,000 people, mostly children. And he was told these families get $2,200 per month until their court date in 7 years. That's more money than my Social Security. He also took lots of pictures, and it's really sad down there." So let's put this in perspective. Since January, 7.6 million illegal aliens have crossed the Texas border. This includes over 18,000 Chinese communist nationalists. Now, look, you calculate the amount of taxpayer money that is going to illegal aliens, and that's over $200 billion. Billion dollars with a B just this year alone of your money being given away to people that aren't supposed to be here. And this is going to continue. I want to do an interview with this individual because let's play this out. If this isn't stopped now, it's all over for America. It's obvious law enforcement isn't going to do anything. They got to pay the mortgage. But what no one is realizing is if you keep this up, you won't have a mortgage anymore because the bank or the government will take your house. That's the plan. You'll own nothing. What needs to happen is entire towns in Texas and elsewhere should be rallying together with their persuaders, get in their trucks, and turn these people right around. Look, the time for action was over 2 years ago. But if you're having a light bulb moment right now and seeing the forest through the trees, don't sit on your duff. And don't think you can just pray this away. Yes, pray, always be in prayer. But there are plenty of examples in the Bible where God commanded the Israelites to take forceful actions. Jesus himself sent forth his disciples, as we see in Matthew 10:1. "Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." You are amongst the wolves, so be wise. And take note, harmless as doves, it does not mean to take a passive position, but rather more like Patrick Swayze in the movie Roadhouse. Be nice until it's not time to be nice. Folks, this is not my word of the day, but perhaps my word of the year. Get off your duff and be bold. Stop tolerating the stupidity and injustice, and at the very least, start saying something. Look, I am just one guy with a very small following, but if I have to, look, I'll be your motivator. Frankly speaking, folks, I'm tired. And while I haven't had a proper vacation in over 12 years, I cannot stop now. Send this video to your circles of influence, and let's see some action today.